What a peculiar pleasure it affords us to see any free animal looking after its own welfare unhindered, finding its food or taking care of its young, or associating with others of its kind, and so on. The will to life objectifies itself in the multitude of the phenomenal world. All that is, everything we experience, is the will become flesh, so to speak. This is as true for the lifeless rock as it is for ourselves. As we move up the ladder, from rocks to plants to animals, we can see the will more clearly at work, more distinctively objectified. In the higher organisms, such as animals, the will finds more clever ways to assert its own objectification. In general, the more clever an animal is, the more sophisticated its will expressions. In other words, its struggle for survival. We can see this mechanism at work when ravens or chimpanzees solve puzzles for food. We like to watch animals. It's just one of those things humans seem to enjoy. Have you ever wondered why that is? Arthur Schopenhauer's works are full of psychological observations, which he goes on to explain through the lens of his philosophy. He considered it one of his philosophy's greatest strengths. While his system was constructed through pure reason and subjective experience, it also accounted for a great deal of natural phenomena, ranging from the observation that plants seem to fight each other for sunlight to explanations for seemingly obvious little facts of life. For example, that humans like to observe animals. You could say it's the business of philosophy to question the obvious. And while philosophy at its core is mostly concerned with the big questions like what is good, what is true, and what is beautiful, a true philosophical system must also account for the small questions. Why does a soundtrack make a movie better? Why does noise bother us? Why do we like to watch animals? What makes Schopenhauer's system so attractive is how, interwoven throughout the highbrow discussions on the sublime, ethics, music, Kantian metaphysics, and Greek literature, Schopenhauer throws in little specks of elucidation. Every now and then, he will bring up one of those little questions and explain them to us. In paragraph 51 of The World as Will and Representation, for example, Schopenhauer discusses the role of poetry in his grand aesthetic theory. But amid metaphysical discussions on Platonic ideas, and between quotations of Homer, Schiller, and Byron, Schopenhauer goes on a tangent on water fountains and explains, through the lens of his philosophy, why we enjoy looking at them. Sometimes he takes a bit more time to flesh out these observations. In an essay entitled simply Psychological Observations, he lists a few. The one we're going to focus on is why we like to watch animals. Because of the all encompassing nature of Schopenhauer's philosophy, having a good understanding of the world as will and representation will add an extra layer of meaning to Schopenhauer's explanations. However, even without this knowledge, there is much to be gained from reading this little essay. Let's go back to the beginning of this video. The world as we experience it is essentially objectified will. This objectification becomes more sophisticated the more complex or intelligent the object is. Thus, with a stone, we see a simple objectification, and with chimpanzees, a complex one. With more complex degrees of objectification comes an increased intelligence. With humans, the will finds its most complex objectification yet, and correspondingly, humans are the most intelligent beings in the world. It's important to note that the intelligence is a byproduct of and subservient to the will, but that's a subject for another video. The high intelligence afforded to humans by the will comes at a great cost. First, it makes us aware of the suffering of the world, and second, it allows us to lie, mislead, and cheat. In other words, it allows us to hide our true feelings. In men, we get reason, and with reason, reflection, and with this, the faculty for dissimulation, which immediately throws a veil over the actions of the will. Lower animals do not have this capacity to mislead, at least not as much as humans do. Animals are always themselves, and we feel this on an instinctual level. In animals, we can witness the will without the veil of reasoning hanging over it, obscuring it. We take delight in a more pure form of existence, a naive existence, unburdened with the knowledge of the sufferings of the world with which we humans are so intimately acquainted. And it is because the will is most striking in the lower class of animals that we may account for our delight in dogs, apes, cats, etc. It is the absolute naivete of all their expressions which charms us so much. The contemplation of animals delights us so much principally because we see in them our own existence very much simplified. There is only one mendacious creature in the world, man. Every other is true and genuine, for it shows itself as it is and expresses itself just as it feels. Now, to conclude, you might say we don't need Schopenhauer's philosophy to come to the conclusion that we like animals because they seem naive and carefree to us. But it's precisely the strength of Schopenhauer's philosophy that it explains in such clear, rational language the origins of these human, all too human experiences we all share. Behind this tiny observation lies an entire system of thought that explores the world in all its facets, from its abstract beginnings in space and time all the way to water fountains. That is the beauty and strength of Schopenhauer's philosophy, and why it's always a worthwhile use of your time to pick up the world as will and representation and start reading. If you don't want to read, you can always check out our big video on the subject. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.